Have you ever had a friend betray you at school in a way you didn't see coming? I still think about this almost 10 years later, mostly because it was the first moment in my life where I realized that some people will smile in your face while holding the knife behind their back. Back in my junior year, I had this friend named Caleb. He wasn't my best friend, not even someone I hung out with outside of school, but he was my safe buddy. You know the type quiet, smart, always polite the guy who'd save you a seat or share his notes without being asked. We ended up partnered in chemistry because our teacher believed pairing stable personalities would keep the class from burning down the lab. Everything was fine for the first month. We divided the work evenly, shared answers, and even had inside jokes about the teacher's insane obsession with goggles. I genuinely thought we worked well together. Then came the midterm project, a full write-up, plus a demonstration of a reaction that we had to perform live. It was worth a massive chunk of our grade, so we took it seriously, or at least I did. Caleb kept saying he was handling the write-up, so I focused on the experiment. I did all the sourcing, all the prep, all the cleanup. Every time I asked to see the write-up, he said, "Don't worry, I'll finish it tonight." I didn't push it because, again, he seemed like the responsible one, the dependable one, the one adult teachers trusted more than anyone. The day before the project was due, he finally emailed me the file. It was 3 paragraphs long, 3. I thought he'd accidentally sent the wrong file until I scrolled down and saw his name plastered in the header with the description of roles saying Project Lead Caleb H, and under my name, Assistant Experimental Setup Only. That's when my stomach dropped. I realized what he was doing, but I still gave him the benefit of the doubt because I was stupid and 17 and assumed people didn't intentionally screw you over unless you gave them a reason. I stayed up almost the entire night rewriting the entire paper from scratch. I added the data, the calculations, the references, everything. I emailed the fixed version to him and said, "Use this one." He didn't even reply. Next day in class, we did our demonstration and everything went perfectly. The teacher was impressed, the class clapped, and I felt this small glow of pride until we sat back down and Caleb whispered, "I'm gonna tell her I did the bulk of the write-up after class, just letting you know." I remember staring at him, waiting for him to laugh or say it was a joke. He didn't. He was dead serious, eyes forward, like he was reading a script someone else had given him. After class, he called the teacher over before I could even stand up and said, "I want to clarify something about the division of work." And he just lied, boldly, casually, like he'd been rehearsing it. He told her he wrote the whole paper, and I only handled the experiment setup, which according to him wasn't that difficult. He even said he had to fix some of my errors the night before. My ears got so hot I couldn't hear anything after that. The teacher nodded slowly, thanked him for the clarification, and walked away without even looking at me. I felt this weird mix of nausea, humiliation, and disbelief. I wanted to defend myself, but the moment had already slipped away, and I looked like the kid who would just be making excuses. The real punch to the gut came the next week. Grades were posted, and he got a 98. I got an 81. When I confronted him, he said, "It's nothing personal. You already get good grades in other classes. I needed this one more." Like it was the most logical thing in the world. As if my effort was a resource free for the taking. As if betrayal was just a form of academic budgeting. I stopped talking to him completely, but he acted like nothing happened. He even tried sitting next to me again during labs. I moved tables. My teacher never asked why. No one did. The thing that still stings. Not the grade, not the betrayal, but the fact that I genuinely thought I was safe with him. I thought reliability meant loyalty. I thought politeness meant character. I thought being needed meant being valued. I learned all 3 were wrong that year. And the funniest part, 2 years later, he messaged me out of nowhere during freshman year of college. He said, "Hey, do you still have the notes from chemistry? I'm retaking a similar course." I didn't respond. I didn't need revenge. Silence was enough. I swear, if you had asked me back then who my closest friend was, I would have said Evan without even blinking. We met in 7th grade over a stupid argument about who got the last mechanical pencil from the school store, and somehow that dumb interaction turned into 6 years of being practically glued at the hip. He was the kind of guy who always had a joke ready, always knew how to diffuse awkward tension, always seemed like the good one in the group. That's probably why it took me way too long to realize what he'd been doing behind my back. It all started during senior year, when our English teacher assigned this monster of a research project that was basically half of our final grade. Everyone freaked out, except for me and Evan, who instantly agreed we'd help each other out. We always did. We shared notes, swapped drafts, and even had a whole ritual of proofreading each other's stuff the night before anything big was due. It wasn't even a question, it was just how we worked. But the project this time came with a twist. The teacher announced she would choose one exceptional submission to award extra credit and recommend to a statewide essay contest. Everyone groaned because she only ever picked like one person out of 150 students. It was usually a surprise genius. But Evan looked at me and whispered, "Bro, imagine if it were one of us this year." I laughed because, yeah, right, we worked together for weeks. Except something felt different. He kept asking for my notes earlier than usual. He kept asking to read my draft before showing me his. And he was always too tired or too busy to trade in the other direction. I chalked it up to stress. We were drowning in AP classes. Weird behavior wasn't exactly suspicious on its own. The night before the project was due, he begged me to send him a clean PDF of my final draft just to compare formatting. No alarms went off. Why would they? This was my closest friend. I sent it, went to sleep, and thought nothing of it. 2 days later, our teacher called Evan to the front of the class and congratulated him for submitting one of the strongest research essays she'd seen in years. The whole class clapped. I felt proud of him until she projected his essay onto the screen. I stopped breathing paragraph after paragraph, my words, my structure, my transitions, my citations. The only things changed were the title and the order of 2 sections. Even the typos were mine. I raised my hand slowly like I was underwater. Ms. Carter, that looks a lot like my project." She frowned and told me to bring my copy after class. I did. She compared them in complete silence, her face getting tighter with every page. When she called Evan in, he tried to claim we had accidentally worked too closely together. Then he changed his story and said I borrowed from him. Then he said maybe we both subconsciously influenced each other. It was like watching someone drown in their own lies, flailing desperately. But the worst part wasn't the teacher. It wasn't the failing grade she slapped on him. It wasn't even the withdrawal of the recommendation. It was walking out into the hallway with him and hearing him mutter under his breath, "You really couldn't let me have this one thing." That line hit harder than the plagiarism. Let him have it. My work, my effort, my chances at the scholarship, the extra credit would have boosted. We stopped talking after that. He made no apology, no attempt to fix things, no sign he'd even understood what he'd done. I guess the betrayal wasn't just that he stole my essay. It was realizing he never valued our friendship the way I thought he did. Months later, he sent me a half-hearted text saying we should get over it, like it was some minor disagreement. I never replied. And to this day, whenever someone asks if I've ever been blindsided by a friend, I still think about watching my own essay projected on that classroom wall with his name at the top and feeling something inside me crack in a way that never fully went back into place. I had this friend named Luca who was the kind of kid teachers loved and students trusted without thinking. He had that friendly golden retriever energy, always laughing, always doing impressions, always making the room feel lighter. I wasn't the popular kid, but I wasn't a loner either. I existed in that weird middle space where everyone sort of knows you, but no one really knows you. Luca was the first person at school who actually made me feel like I belonged somewhere. We hung out every day, swapped terrible cafeteria lunches, and shared a notebook full of doodles and inside jokes. Honestly, I thought we were inseparable. What I didn't know was that Luca had a very different idea of what friendship meant. It started small. I'd hear weird comments about me traveling back through the grapevine stuff I never said. A joke I made twisted into something rude. A story I told exaggerated into something embarrassing. But every time Luca would be the first to defend me. and he'd tell me he had no idea who started it. He'd even act all angry, ranting about snakes in our grade while we walked home together. And I believed him, because why wouldn't I? He was my friend. Then came the science fair. We'd planned our project together for months. This ridiculous volcano that was supposed to erupt using a mix of chemicals Luca's older brother said would look insane. We tested it once in the driveway and it shot up like a geyser. We genuinely thought we had a shot at winning. So picture this, the gym is full, the judges are walking around, and Luca suddenly tells me he has to run to the bathroom. Cool, whatever, but then the judges reach our table and our volcano doesn't erupt. It doesn't even fizzle, it basically burps. And I'm standing there like an idiot doing all the talking, trying to explain why our super volcano turned into a sad lump of papier-mâché. We fail. Luca returns 2 minutes later looking way too innocent, and then I overhear something that changed everything. I'm packing up our disaster of a project when I hear Luca laughing with two guys from the soccer team guys who never talked to me unless they needed something. He actually thought we were doing the volcano. Luca said between laughs, I told him I swapped ingredient ratios on accident, but dude, I switched them on purpose. Had to coach said if I ditch him and team up with Jonah next semester, I can join the starting lineup. The room spun. My hands literally shook. I didn't confront him right away. I just stood there pretending to clean up while my ears burned, listening to him call me deadweight and the easiest person to fool. He talked about me like I was some charity case he was tired of dragging around. And the worst part, the betrayal wasn't even the science fair sabotage. It was how easily he tossed me aside for popularity points. After that day, I ghosted him, stopped sitting with him, stopped answering his messages. He noticed, obviously. He tried to act confused. Tried to guilt trip me with, bro, what's your problem? And even tried to joke his way out of it. But I never said a word. I didn't see the point. He knew exactly what he did. Fast forward a few months. His new friends ditched him too. They found another shiny, eager kid to manipulate. Luca tried to crawl back, saying he missed hanging out, that he didn't mean any of it, that he was in a bad place mentally. I didn't take him back. Some betrayals don't deserve redemption arcs. Last I heard, he still tells people we drifted apart. Funny how betrayers always rewrite history to sound less ugly. I still remember the way the fluorescent lights buzzed in that stupid chemistry lab the day everything went sideways. I was 17. Painfully introverted, and honestly, just trying to survive my junior year without drawing attention from the cool kids. My lab partner Maya was one of those float-between-groups girls, not popular, not unpopular, just socially flexible in all the ways I wasn't. We'd worked together since September, and over time, she'd become one of the few people at school I felt genuinely comfortable with. She'd vent about her older sister. I'd complain about my dad's constant traveling, and somehow we started eating lunch together a few days a week. I thought we were actually becoming friends. So when our chemistry teacher announced a huge final project worth almost a quarter of our grade, it felt natural to partner up. We divided the work evenly. I'd handle the written portion and data analysis. She'd take the model diagrams and presentation. For 2 weeks, we met at the library, studied together, and even joked around. Something I almost never did with anyone. On the surface, everything felt normal. Better than normal. I remember thinking, wow, maybe this year won't suck. Then came the presentation day. We stood in front of the class ready to roll. Except when Maya started speaking, she froze for half a second. Then she launched into this weird speech about how she personally tried really hard on the project even though her partner wasn't pulling their weight. I thought she was joking at first. Then she doubled down, talking about how she ended up doing most of the work, how she had to rewrite the report last minute, and how she hoped next time group assignments would be more balanced. My ears started ringing. I remember gripping the edge of the lab table so hard my knuckles went bloodless. The class turned and stared at me like I'd just been caught cheating on camera. Even the teacher raised an eyebrow and scribbled something down on his clipboard. I tried to speak, but my throat locked up. I felt like I'd just been slapped in front of 30 people. After class, I confronted her in the hallway and she gave me this fake apologetic shrug and said, I'm sorry, but I really need an A this semester. Colleges look at junior year grades the most. Like betraying me was a simple strategic decision and not something that would gut me for months. I told her I still had the Google Doc history showing who wrote what, and she just smirked and said, "Do whatever you want. He already marked participation. It won't change anything." And she was right. It didn't. The teacher refused to review the document logs because he didn't want to get in the middle of group drama. Our project grade tanked. My final average dropped almost a full letter. I had to explain the dip to my parents for weeks, and we never spoke again. Not a single word for the rest of the year, even though her locker was literally 2 down from mine. The betrayal itself hurt, but what hit even harder was realizing how disposable I was to someone I actually trusted. It changed the way I approach people for years. Even now as an adult, I can still hear her voice saying, "She needed an A," like that made everything okay. Funny enough, I heard from someone recently that she works in HR, and all I could think was, yeah, that tracks. I still think about this betrayal way more than a grown adult should, but it honestly changed the entire way I trust people. Back in 8th grade, I had this best friend named Liam Funny, charming, the type of guy teachers adored for no reason other than he smiled a lot and did that thing where he pretended to care about what they were saying. We'd been partners for every project that year, mostly because I was the planner and he was the idea guy. Which in hindsight meant he pitched one vague concept and I did literally everything else. But I didn't mind. At the time, I thought that's just how friendships worked. For the science fair, the big end-of-year event, I came up with this renewable energy model using magnets and rotational momentum. I stayed after school for weeks building it, tweaking the wiring, making the little demo turbine spin smoothly. Liam, he came to maybe 2 after-school sessions, both times insisting he had to leave early because his mom needed him, even though I saw him playing basketball afterward both days. But I let it slide. I wanted us to win. And honestly, I wanted him to feel proud of something too. The day before the fair, he suddenly changed. He stopped talking to me in class, kept huddling with this guy, Mason, who'd always hated me, and every time I walked up, they'd stop talking mid-sentence like a pair of cartoon villains. My stomach kept doing that weird drop thing. But I convinced myself it was nothing. I just wanted to believe the best. Then the morning of the science fair arrived. I got there early to set up our display, and that's when I found the project, or what was left of it. The wires were ripped out, the magnet coil was smashed, the poster board was slashed right down the middle like someone took scissors to it in a rage. It looked less like an accident and more like a crime scene. I remember just freezing. My brain literally couldn't make sense of it. I thought maybe it fell, maybe someone knocked it over, maybe the janitor accidentally crushed it. Some desperate part of me clung to any explanation except betrayal. But then Liam walked in with Mason, and they both stopped dead. When they saw me standing there holding part of the broken model, Liam's face went pale, then red. Then something weirdly smug settled in. Mason was just outright grinning. That's when it clicked. They thought I wouldn't show up early. They thought I'd discover the destruction too late to fix anything. They thought the blame would fall equally because we were partners. I confronted him, voice shaking, asking why he'd do something like this. He shrugged and said, "Dude, it wasn't personal. Mason and I had a way better idea, and I didn't want to get stuck being part of your weird nerd project." Your weird nerd project. This kid had done absolutely nothing the entire time, and suddenly he decided I was a burden. Mason chimed in with something like, "Teacher'll understand. If you tell her it broke, people will probably pity you." Pity. They wanted pity for me while they presented their sparkling new project, aka my idea. The exact same concept, just sloppier but decorated nicer. The science teacher wasn't stupid. She took one look at their project and asked where they got the idea. Liam said confidently, "My uncle works in engineering." The teacher glanced at me across the room, and for the first time, I watched an adult fully understand what was happening without me even saying a word. She disqualified them on the spot, but honestly, it didn't feel good. It didn't feel victorious. I stood next to my ruined project holding pieces of something I'd poured myself into, and all I felt was this hollow burning ache in my chest. Losing the science fair sucked, but losing the illusion that Liam had ever actually been my friend hurt way more. He didn't apologize. Not then, not at graduation. Not years later, when he tried adding me on Facebook like nothing ever happened, I didn't accept the request. And to this day, whenever someone suddenly changes their tone with me or gets close too fast, I still remember standing in that classroom, holding the broken remains of my project. That's when I realized betrayal doesn't always come from your enemies. Sometimes it comes from the person smiling next to you in every group photo. I had this friend named Max who everyone described as harmless, which I later realized is one of the worst labels a person can receive. Harmless people get away with everything because nobody thinks to look at them. Max and I weren't best friends, but we were close enough to walk home together, close enough to partner up in PE, close enough to share the kind of stupid secrets middle schoolers think are life-ending. I was the quiet kid, the type who fades into the back row even when sitting in the front, and Max was the opposite, loud, twitchy, always a little too excited about nothing. But we got along. The betrayal started small, the way rot starts under the floorboards quietly. I didn't know anything was wrong until one Monday morning when I sat down at our usual lunch table and the entire group froze like I'd walked into an active crime scene. Max wouldn't even look at me. They all stared at their trays, shifting, whispering. I thought maybe they were planning a birthday surprise or something equally cheesy because my brain refused to jump to anything sinister. Then I noticed the extra chair. A new kid, Jaden, sat there, grinning like he knew something I didn't. By Wednesday, Jaden was practically welded to Max's side. Whatever, I didn't mind. I wasn't trying to own Max like a pet. But then I started hearing little things. Did you really say that? Why would you tell him that? Are you okay? Like mentally? And I'd stand there confused because I hadn't said anything weird. Not to them, not to anyone. Things escalated when someone slipped a note into my locker that said, "If you're so obsessed with Max, just tell him." I laughed because the absurdity was Olympic-level obsessed. I barely texted the dude. Half the time he sent memes I didn't even respond to. Still, the rumor stuck like gum on the bottom of a shoe. The worst moment. The moment I realized Max wasn't just passively letting things happen, but actively feeding them, was during group project day in science. Our teacher let us choose partners, and I went straight to Max out of habit. Before I could even sit down, he loudly said, "Yeah, actually, I don't feel comfortable pairing with you, after everything." He said it with this dramatic performative tone, like we were on a reality show, and he just revealed I'd eaten his goldfish or cheated on him. Everyone looked at me like I was some kind of predator. I just froze. "After what?" I managed to ask. And he shrugged in this smug little way that screamed, "You know what?" But I didn't. Not even a little. I eventually cornered Jaden because he seemed like the type who'd crack under direct pressure. I asked him what exactly Max had been saying. Jaden looked guilty, then muttered, "He said you were following him around after school like stalking him." I almost laughed because of how ridiculous it sounded. Max and I literally walked the same direction home, same streets, same intersection, same bus stop. That was the whole crime. Turns out, Max told the group I was jealous of Jaden, that I was losing it because I didn't want anyone else to be his friend. He told people I'd gone through his backpack, something that never happened, and that I'd gotten territorial. That word stuck with me, territorial, like I was some feral dog snarling over a food dish. The part that actually broke me. He told them I'd confessed feelings for him, completely fake, fabricated fantasy-level nonsense, and they all believed him because quiet kids don't get the benefit of the doubt. Quiet kids are suspicious by default. When I confronted Max, he doubled down. He said, "Look, if you just acted normal, maybe none of this would have happened." Acted normal, as if I'd done anything except exist in the same spaces I always had. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I just walked away. And for the first time in months, the silence felt like a shield instead of a prison. A weird epilogue. A year later, Max pulled the same stunt on Jaden over something petty. Some girl liked Jaden instead of him, and Max spiraled. Suddenly, he was the one being called obsessed, and he was the one being avoided at lunch. Jaden apologized to me in the hallway one day, genuinely apologizing, saying, "I should have believed you." I just nodded. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt tired. Max tried to talk to me months after, acting like nothing had happened, but I realized something important. Betrayal doesn't just show you who someone is. It shows you who they've always been, hidden under all the harmlessness, and I never sat at that table again. My betrayal came from my friend Amira, one of those people who seemed trustworthy simply because she listened more than she spoke. We had been friends since 5th grade, and we shared everything: crushes, insecurities, stupid doodles during math class. In 9th grade, I told her something huge, that I had a crush on a girl for the first time. I wasn't out yet. Not even to my family, but Amira hugged me and promised, "It's safe with me, always." 2 weeks later, the rumor mill started grinding. It began quietly, whispers behind me, in the hallway, giggles when I walked into the cafeteria. Then someone wrote "Lesbo" on my locker in permanent marker. I remember staring at the letters, my hands shaking, while Amira stood beside me, acting shocked. She even helped me scrub it off with nail polish remover she magically had in her bag. I didn't know the truth until one night at a sleepover with mutual friends. Someone mentioned the rumor and another girl drunkenly slurred, "Well, yeah. Amira told us weeks ago. She said she was worried about you." My heart went cold. She had exposed me not out of malice, but for attention, wrapping it in faux concern so she could be the helpful one while secretly enjoying being the center of gossip. I confronted her at school, but she just cried and said, "I didn't think they'd tell anyone else," as if gossip ever stops at one person. After that, we drifted apart until the friendship just evaporated. I didn't come out again to anyone until college because of that betrayal. Funny how one careless moment from a friend can delay something so vital for years. Back in middle school, I had a friend named Caleb, the kind of guy who was charismatic in a way that made adults adore him and kids trust him instantly. We both tried out for the basketball team our 7th grade year. There were only 2 open spots, and between the two of us, I genuinely thought he'd get one and I'd get the other. We practiced together every morning before school, him encouraging me and even showing me drills he learned from his older brother. Tryout week came, and suddenly he became distant. He stopped meeting me before school, stopped answering messages, stopped even acknowledging me in the halls. I assumed he was stressed. Then the final day rolled around, and after practice, the coach pulled me aside to address some concerns. He told me Caleb had come to him privately and said I was planning to quit halfway through the season and only wanted to join for attention. I was stunned. I had never said anything remotely like that, and Caleb knew basketball was the one thing keeping me sane during a rough home life. Instead of confronting him, I stupidly tried to defend myself to the coach, but the damage was done. When the team list went up, Caleb's name was on it. Mine wasn't. The hardest part wasn't losing the spot, it was watching him run up to the team laughing and high-fiving like he didn't just throw me under the bus. I found out later from another kid that Caleb told everyone I wasn't that upset because I didn't really care about basketball anyway. Years later, I realized he sabotaged me because he saw me as competition. It taught me a painful but important lesson. Sometimes the people who cheer you on the loudest only do it when they're sure you won't outshine them. In 6th grade, my best friend was a girl named Talia. We were inseparable. We had matching gel pens, matching trapper keepers, even matching fake friendship tattoos drawn in Sharpie. When she invited me to her birthday party, I was excited, especially because she said it would just be the two of us and we'd have a best friends only sleepover. The day arrived, and when I walked into her living room, I saw 8 other girls sitting on the floor eating pizza. My stomach dropped, but I tried to play it cool. Maybe she invited them last minute. But then I overheard one of the girls whisper loudly, "Why is she here? I thought you weren't talking to her anymore." Talia brushed it off, calling it a misunderstanding, but the tension lingered like a bad smell. Later that night, while everyone was doing TikTok dances, I stepped out to the hallway to grab my charger. That's when I heard Talia's voice from her bedroom talking to 2 girls. I just didn't know how to uninvite her without hurting her feelings. She always clings to me. My chest felt hollow. Clings to her, I was the one who lent her my homework, my hoodie, my emotional support when her parents were fighting. I walked back in like nothing happened, but something inside me had cracked. I stayed quiet the rest of the night, counting the minutes until my mom picked me up. The next Monday, I sat somewhere else at lunch and didn't look back. Sometimes the betrayal isn't dramatis, it's just realizing the person you valued most didn't value you at all.